Hello everybody, welcome to The Mayor and I, with me, Lindsay Khan and Nick Buckley, MBE.
Thank you.
Pleased to meet you, Nick. Pleased to meet you. Pleased to see you again. We come to you the week, is it a week after the election? Must be nearly
4 days.
4 days after the election. And first of all, commiserations, Nick, you didn't win the seat of Oldham East and Saddleworth and Oldham East. And I've now got a problem because we made the agreement that I would grow my hair and my beard until you gained public office. Yeah. So now I'm wondering what can I do? When are you going to get public office so I can get a haircut?
You're better off now going on a long journey looking for a powerful ring. You're turning slowly into Gandalf.
Yeah, I know. So now when I introduce you to our gentle viewers, I can't say parliamentary candidate, I can't say mayoral candidate. So how do I now introduce you in these shows?
I think it should be Nick Buckley, candidate for a forthcoming election.
Nick Buckley, and I think you've changed your certainly your YouTube channel. Yeah. Catchphrase, and it now says, does it say now a man on a mission? I can't remember. Yeah, is that what it says? So I quite like that, Nick Buckley, a man on a mission. But I need to make some decisions about my hair and my beard. Yes. So yeah, you didn't do well in the election, and who won in Oldham? I'm actually genuinely not that interested once I found out.
It was the Labour MP, the incumbent.
Right. Okay.
But she dropped 6,000 votes. She got more than I thought she'd get, but she dropped 6,000 votes, which was roughly what George Galloway's party took off her.
Yeah.
And the Tories and Reform, as predicted, split their vote between them.
Right.
So Reform took half of, just under half of the Tory vote.
Yeah. And I'd like you to give your thoughts on the election, but if I just tell you my initial assessment, and obviously we've been reading the papers for the past 5 days about this, but my view on this is it wasn't a vote for Labour. Yeah. It was basically a vote against the Tories. My understanding is that the overall numbers of votes you'll be able to hopefully flesh this out, dropped significantly from the last 2 elections, and in addition to that, it highlighted, I think, for everybody, it's something you and I have talked about before, that proportional representation is needed in some way, shape or form in this country, because we got the awful situation with the Reform Party, who I voted for. I'm happy to confess to that to our listeners. The Reform Party got something in the region of
4,100,000 votes.
4,100,000 votes.
And got 5 MPs.
And got 5 MPs, whereas the Lib Dems got 3.5 million votes and got 71 seats. And I hate to say this because I'm not a fan of the Green Party, but they got 2 million votes and they only got 4 seats. So you got this horrible disparity between, obviously, Reform, the Greens, a lot of people voted for them, and they've got virtually no representation in our governmental houses, basically. So I think for me, my assessment, and maybe you'll have a different opinion, is people didn't vote for Labour. They voted against the Tories. The turnout was far lower than we've seen before. Reform emerged as a serious political force, but despite the number of votes they got, which was a massive 14% of the popular vote, of the total vote, they were not represented anywhere near where they should be in terms of the number of seats. So I think it highlighted for me a number of glaring issues that we are facing as a country in terms of our democracy, I guess I'm saying. So that's kind of my very snapshot overview. Yeah. But I'd be interested in yours.
So 2 things there. Did Labour win, and proportional representation?
Yeah.
So did Labour win? Well, Labour obviously won because they've got over 400 seats now and a dominant party in Parliament. You're right. People didn't vote for Labour. People voted against the Tories. Turnout at the election was 60%. I think it's one of the lowest it's ever been in a general election. because lots of people said to themselves, I'm not even going out to vote. What's the point? They're all as bad as each other. And that's a feeling I've been hearing now for decades. There's no point voting. Who am I going to vote for? They're all the same. And to a certain extent, that's true. So in the last 3 elections, Jeremy Corbyn, when he was leader for 2 elections, his first election against May, he got 13 million votes.
Yep.
And then the second election against Boris Johnson, he got 11 million votes. And Labour, to win the general election this time, got just under 10 million, about 9.5 million votes.
Yeah.
So I can understand people being confused. How can Labour have lost the first 2 elections when they had more votes, and when they get less votes, they get a stonking majority? And that's to do with our system. No political system is perfect. Each one has pros and cons and flaws and benefits. Our system and most political systems in the West are designed so we don't flip-flop from one craze to another craze, because the people, the voter, are quite easily fooled sometimes, and because things become fads, suddenly that's the most popular thing, we're going to do that, but that fad ends in 2 years. What are we going to do now? So our system makes sure we have slow change over time, and that's the right system to have. It throws up anomalies like this sometimes. So who did win the election? Well, I think it's obvious who won the election. I think it was Reform UK. I think a brand new party who's never stood in a parliamentary election before to win any seats is amazing. To win 5 seats, and now they've got a defector. They've got 6 seats now.
Oh, really? Who's defected?
A Northern Ireland MP is defected.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that happened either today or last night.
Wow.
Or something. So they've now got 6 MPs. Not sure if he's defected, but he said he's taking the Reform whip, which means he's part of it. So it might be an alignment because he's one of those Northern Ireland parties.
Yeah.
But anyway, they've now got the group of 6 now.
Yeah, you are allowed to do that. I think because you're voted in as an MP.
As an individual.
You're not voted in as a party,
No.
are you? So.
You voted in as an individual. You can swap parties. You can do anything you want once you're voted in for your term.
Yeah.
Hence why that Labour woman, a Labour MP, who was found guilty of threatening to throw acid in someone's face, got kicked out of the Labour Party, and then stayed in Parliament as an independent for the next 3 years on 92 grand a year.
Yes.
But she then got kicked out last week.
Yeah. All right.
Because she didn't get voted in because she's Labour. She got voted in because of who she was.
Yes.
An individual.
Yeah.
So Reform UK won the election, obviously, and let's be honest, if you add the Reform vote with the Tory vote, Tories would have got a stonking majority across the country.
Really?
Yeah. So I think Labour got 32% of the vote. If you add Tories and Conservatives...
Yes, 34%, 33.8%.
Yeah, if you add Tories and Reform, they're in the 40s.
Tories and Reform would be 38%.
38%.
Yeah.
So they would have won. They'd have got the most seats.
Yeah.
So Reform have done what they said they were going to do. We're going to destroy the Tories. We're going to give you a beating until you understand what conservative values and policies are.
Yeah.
And
but I think Farage is going further than that now. I think he's not. I think he's saying the Tories are finished now and it's now Reform. That's his approach.
That has to be his approach until the next election. It has to be all out. But I've said this all through the last 6-week election. His long-term strategy will be to merge with the Tories. Once the Tories are the Tory party he wants them to be.
But he'll want to lead that party.
He'll want to, but it doesn't mean he will. He may get a senior position in the ranks. We don't know. But the Tory brand has value. So they failed over 14 years. Everyone hates them, but they still got a stonking amount of votes, even with the brand doing so poorly. It's ingrained in people. Reform is still a brand new party. There's no brand recognition really yet. It's not in people's consciousness. So I think over the next 5 years, his plan will be if Labour, if the Tories' new leader is a soft Liberal Democrat, socialist Tory, he's going to keep pumping away and he's going to destroy them bit by bit. If they vote for someone like a Suella Braverman, someone who's a proper Tory, I can see at the next election a pact's being made that we're not going to stand in these seats, you don't stand in those seats. Both parties then will know that they can double the amount of seats they win. Both will be happy with that. And then I think he'll be looking at a merger if the Tories are who he wants them to be.
I mean, I think you say they got a stonking majority. They only got 2.5 million more votes than he did. So he got 4 million, nearly 4.1 million. They got 6.8 million.
I'm looking at the seats.
Yeah, and I agree with that.
Yep.
But I think those numbers, he's now got 5 seats. I think now he can take the argument to the country, reform is going to replace the Tories, what we regard as true. Because I don't think he's going to be happy to compromise with wet Tories, basically.
Oh, he won't.
But I think there's a lot of Tories now who are true Tories, if you like, not wet Tories, who believe in the same principles he does. I think he just needs to make reform attractive to them in the right way, and I think they'll start moving across. And the fact that somebody's moved today, it starts to give me that sign. Yeah. So I actually think this might be the end of the Tory party, because I think they're still a mess even now.
I don't think it's the end of the Tories by any means whatsoever. They're oldest political party in the world. They've got reputation, they've got infrastructure, they've got brand recognition, they've got donors. It's not too big to fail, but I think Reform would be silly not to want to rebrand themselves under their umbrella. But we will see what happens with that. All depends who the electors Tory leader in the next few months. Is it a wet or is it a true Tory?
Yeah. I think it was an extraordinary election because of Reform and because of what happened to the Tories. I think it's an election, I don't think I've seen anything like this in my lifetime happening.
It's more than just Reform. There's lots of things that went on.
Yeah, lots of things. And we're going to cover some of those later. I think it was an extraordinary election. Lots of things happened. I think your point about our system is designed this way to stop. And I think our system worked when there were two parties that were dramatically different in their views, which were Labour and Tory. In my childhood, my growing up, up until probably
the 90s.
Yeah, the 90s. Those were distinctly different parties with distinctly different views, and it was very clear you were voting for the party and their views, not against the other party. Things have shifted now. These parties are remarkably similar. People don't have a choice, so they make a subtle choice based on the one they don't want to vote for. So I think our system worked in the past. I think now we need to see something along the lines of proportional representation.
So let's talk about proportional representation.
Yeah.
I'm not for proportional representation because it gives minority voices a much louder, bigger say.
Correct.
And that can lead to dangerous situations. So if we had proportional representation 10 years ago, we would have had a lot more transgender nonsense, a lot more woke nonsense coming through our policies into law, because suddenly there's 50, 60 seats in Parliament who are all pro-transgender. There'll be another 30, 40 seats who are radical Islamists. There'll be another 10 seats who are pro-paedophile. And we've got all these little identity groups all getting seats because they represent so many people across the country. You could even foresee a criminal group. I know all politicians are criminals, but you could even have people saying, well, we need to represent ex-cons in Parliament. Where do you stop the breaking down of the narrative of the people you're trying to represent?
Well, I would agree with you if we didn't see that it works in Europe, because most of the European countries have a form of proportional representation.
And my question for that is, where does it work?
Holland.
What governments there
Sweden
are doing so much better than we are?
Holland.
Sweden's whole problem of mass immigration and Malmo and their capital becoming no-go areas is all because of proportional representation in their parliaments.
Yeah.
That's what allowed all this to come in.
Yeah.
So
where are they doing better? I would say Germany, France, Holland, Sweden, Italy, Now we're seeing it in Spain as well. The reason I think they're doing better is the more conservative parties are starting to come through now. We're starting to see new parties arrive there, which wouldn't get a footing in the UK, but are starting to get a significant footing and starting to, what I think, rectify the errors that we've seen happening. And my views of what errors are, obviously this is a personal view, isn't it? Some of the issues that they react, you're seeing Europe now reacting to immigration basically, aren't you? And they're able to react quicker than we are because they have the ability to allow smaller parties to flourish. The reason we're 5 years, we're now 5 years behind every other country in Europe, and where I would argue we're 5 years behind America, because I think we all know where America's going to go as well. So that's why I think, yes, I think we're now seeing in Europe people reacting to the EU, reacting to immigration, but they're far more fleet of foot than we are.
I would completely disagree with that. What I would ask you to do is think about the reason why proportional representation is
That's easy for you to say.
Is popular now on the right is because at this moment in time it benefits us.
Yeah.
But a decade from now it won't benefit us, and all of a sudden we would have all the woke lefty Greens all with more power than they should have. Our system doesn't work well at the moment. That is undisputable.
Yeah.
The reason why it doesn't work well is the quality of our MPs.
Yeah.
It's got nothing to do with the system. It's the quality of our MPs. If we start, which is happening now hopefully, if we start electing better quality MPs, our system, I would say, is more superior than any European system, parliamentary system over there. Anyway, we could have proportional representation today, but the quality of our MPs at the moment would be being probably a bigger mess than we are now.
Which means that first past the post doesn't work currently for our electoral system. That's what you're basically saying.
No, what I'm saying at the moment is first past the post works, but the game doesn't work when you've got poor players.
Yeah.
And we just keep electing poor players. That's beginning to
change.
Correct.
So I think we need to have some... It doesn't have to be total proportional representation. It needs to be a form of proportional representation. We're both having difficulty saying it. But that will reflect whatever life is going to throw at us. Because obviously first past the post works with good politicians. It doesn't work with bad politicians. And now look at the mess we're in.
No system works well with bad politicians.
Yeah.
So that's why I don't think our system is the issue. It's the quality of our MPs.
But you've already said you believe Reform have won this election, but you also acknowledge that the fact they've got 4 million votes and haven't got 71 seats is scandalous. And I think a lot of people think
I don't think it's scandalous at all. I just think it's the game they're playing. They enter the game knowing the rules, and that was the outcome of the game. What they will do now is they will work on their strategy of how to increase that number, which they will do.
Yeah, I think they're going to do two things. They're going to work on strategy of how to increase the number, which is all to do with the dynamic with the Tory party. And the second thing they're going to do is lobby for proportional representation. And the Greens will join them in that.
Yeah. Any government in power is the only people who can change policy for proportional representation. Once you're in power, you don't need proportional representation. It damages you. So no government ever in power will implement proportional representation.
The only thing I would say about that is Brexit happened because of the pressure of Nigel Farage and UKIP.
Great point. That's how it's done in our country. You have a left wing, you have a right wing. I know those terms don't mean much anymore now.
Yeah.
And what we do, if we want representation, is we have to lobby one of the groups.
Yes.
And we have to convince the group this is the way to go. That's exactly what UKIP did. UKIP only ever won one seat.
Yeah.
And changed
Douglas Carswell.
Yeah, and changed the country dramatically with one referendum that they forced, that nobody wanted to hold, and they forced the referendum. And so
now they've got 6 seats.
Different party now, but came out
they've
of
got
that,
6 seats now, and they've got Nigel Farage in Parliament.
Yeah.
So I think that the whole dynamic has shifted, and he is going to push for that. And there's going to be, if you think about it, going back to those numbers, there's going to be 6 million people, 6 million electorate supporting that, which are the Greens and Reform. And I'm not a fan of the Greens, by the way, but I feel, even though the Greens I don't like the Greens, don't like the policies, disagree with most of the policies. I think the views of 2 million people should be represented properly in Parliament, which is democracy for me.
The Greens' views
Yeah,
are promoted by every single party in the UK,
Yeah.
apart from Reform.
yeah,
So Greens
Yeah.
have been overrepresented for the last 30, 40, 50 years in Parliament.
yeah.
All this crap has come out of the Green Party. So,
Yes.
so they are represented.
No, but 2 million people voted for them.
Well, they've... Yes.
And I want to support those people, Nick.
Well, those people are being supported by the Labour Party, the Tory Party, the Lib Dems, the Greens, and probably some other smaller parties. They're all supporting the Green voter.
Yeah. We could actually have this discussion for quite a long time. I want to move on to something I suggested here, and I want to get your views on it. So if I just tell you what I'm thinking first, and then just think about... I think I know what your response is going to be. So this is a hard thing for me to say, but I'm suddenly optimistic about Labour. I had a look at, after they won, I had a look at their immigration policy.
Yeah.
And their immigration policy has 3 major points on it.
Yeah.
Because I really think immigration is the biggest issue we are facing in this country at the moment.
Yeah.
I mean, we'll talk later about, have you heard of Joey Barton?
Yeah.
He's a footballer, but he has a little podcast. I don't know if you've actually talked to him or spent time with him. I'll talk about a podcast, but he was talking about immigration with Rafe, the guy from...
New Culture Forward,
Yeah.
Mendel Kuhn.
Yeah. He's got a great name.
It's a Hungarian name.
Yeah. So immigration, these are the 3 points on immigration that they want to do. They want to boost Britain's skills by joining up Whitehall systems. It's a bit boring, this, blah, blah, blah. 2, reform the points-based immigration system, bringing down migration. That's the second. Point 3, new powers to ban hiring from overseas for employers and recruitment agencies who break employment law. So they've actually addressed immigration in their manifesto. But when I've been watching Keir Starmer, Rachel Reeves, and hearing them speak, and one thing that occurred to me is Scotland is now Labour again. So the SNP were white out in Scotland. So the majority party in Scotland is Labour, and the Scottish government is Labour. The majority partner in the majority partner in Wales is Labour. So we now have 3 countries in the Great Britain that are all aligned politically, whereas for the past 14 years we haven't had that. Starmer's immediately gone to Wales and gone to Scotland to see his allies over there. I'm getting a real sense of kind of unification. I'm seeing somebody who, before the election, said they were going to tackle immigration. I'm hearing Rachel Reeves talking about growing the economy. And I'm thinking they are basically two cheeks of the same arse in that they are similar Tories, but they're an aligned party now in Great Britain rather than a misaligned party under attack. They've got the support of the media, the mainstream media, because they're all left-wing progressives. And I think Keir Starmer comes across as a less tetchy, less impulsive person than Sunak or Truss or all these people. So this is my impression at the moment, gleaned, I hasten to say, by not watching mainstream media. This is me just generally observing. I'm not watching the BBC. I haven't started reading The Guardian, Nick, before before you get up and storm out in disgust. And that's kind of my impression in the first 4 or 5 days. Have I been bamboozled, Nick?
No. I didn't write an article on this, but I discussed it the other day online. What you're basically doing is you're hoping for the success of the Labour Party because they're running the country. Only a fool would wish their government to fail because that impacts everybody in the country. So even though I think Labour are going to crash and burn, I hope they prove me wrong because I want a decent government. They won't do anything I want them to do, but if they can make things slightly better, well, that's better than making things slightly worse. So I wish Keir Starmer and the Labour government all the luck in the world that things don't derail them, and I hope they do some good things. And I think that's where you're at the moment. You're giving them the benefit of doubt because it's over now. The election's over. We're stuck with them for up to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, only a fool would want their government to fail. Going on from that, words are very easy. So everything they've said in that manifesto there would be almost word for word what the Tories were saying. The Tories had 14 years to do any of that. Did they do any of it? No, they didn't. The Labour government's in a bit of a honeymoon period at the moment. It won't last long. I think it'll last a couple of weeks, maybe a month. And then reality will start hitting everybody. Things will start going a little bit away. And then we will see how to handle that then. But can they reduce mass immigration? Well, not only is it difficult to do it, most of their supporters don't want them to do it. Most of their hardcore MPs don't want them to do it. Find it racist, find it xenophobic, find it some sort of colonial punishment for us. So therefore we need to take more of immigrants. So,
well, can I shock you there?
Yeah.
Because part of the reason I've said this is there was an analysis in the Telegraph
Yeah.
of, what was it, the Financial Times ago, of how the voters, Labour voters, regard immigration. And what it's shown is that 40% of the Labour voters regard there to be too much immigration and then too many people are being allowed into asylum. A smaller percentage actually support more migration. And in fact, 41% believe the government is not doing enough to stop channel migrant crossings. 32% believe immigration are too high, and 42% believe immigration is creating a negative. Think that the government is creating a negative environment for migrants who live in Britain. But basically, quite a large percentage of them think there's too much immigration. So Starmer is aware of these stats. He's aware of these stats.
I'm sure he is, and to a certain extent he doesn't care about them because they're just voters. Labour voters, but just voters.
Yeah.
What he cares about are Labour members and Labour MPs.
Yeah.
Because the voters can't punish him for 5 years.
Right.
The Labour Party and its members and his MPs can punish him from this week onwards.
Right. So I'll give you another stat here. More than 100 Labour MPs now represent constituencies where the right, should the Conservatives and Reform, which is a point you've made, Conservatives and Reform unite, wouldn't seat them in the next election.
Yeah.
So there's 100 Labour MPs who are in danger of losing their seat if they don't address the issues that the voters in those constituencies want addressing.
So that's 100 MPs who may be a pain in the backside to Keir Starmer out of 410 MPs.
Yeah, that's 25%.
Yeah. So, but again, they can be ignored. Because if they don't vote for anything he wants, he still gets all this legislation passed because he's got a majority of over 200.
Yeah, but it's hard, that would be very hard to ignore 100.
Yeah. Well, every party has got an issue with mass migration.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is it's not an issue for Keir Starmer at the moment because he'll be punished in 5 years' time for that. He's got to make sure he's not derailed before that. So it's all about priorities. And it's also about how easy do you think it is to reduce mass migration? Do you think Sunak and all the Tories knew mass migration was going to kill him at the election? Do you think they knew that was going to happen?
I think they did towards the end.
Why didn't they do anything about it?
I don't know.
They can't do anything
Nick,
about it.
I don't know. That is the question that plagues me. So are you aware that last year, this came off the Joey Barton podcast, last year there were the immigration in this country was 1.2 million people.
Yeah.
And that 1.2 million people is more than the entire decades of the 80s and 90s immigration. So we had 2 decades of immigration in 1 year last year.
And the year before was 1.1 million the year before.
Yeah.
The last 2 years that have been the 2 big ones,
Yeah. In the last 10 years, we've had more immigration than the last 2 centuries or something crazy.
It's 2,000 years. Yeah.
Yeah. So why the hell didn't they stop it?
They couldn't stop it because they had no one with no backbones.
Yeah.
It's going to be a hard fight. No backbones. The civil service is against it. So you've got to not only fight your colleagues, you've got to fight the civil service. No one's got a backbone for that or the energy for that. And the third reason is immigrants add money to the economy. Not the overall economy. It just makes us look like we're a richer country than we are. But we're all individually getting poorer, and more immigrants now take more out of the system than put in. But it's a Ponzi scheme. The Tories have developed a Ponzi scheme over 14 years with mass immigration, started by Tony Blair. And once you're in a Ponzi scheme, you don't want to be the one who stops, because if it can go on a bit longer, you get benefit out of it. And if you're the one who makes the whole pyramid collapse, you're blamed for it. So it was all about, let's kick the can down into the long grass a little bit more. They're the 3 reasons why the Tories never got a grip on it.
But I don't think it can be ignored now. It's the biggest. I think it's the biggest political issue in the UK and in Europe now.
Oh, absolutely, and it will be addressed over the next decade, but it'll be addressed when it has to be addressed. It won't be addressed now. The Labour Party will not address it. It will be addressed when it cannot be ignored anymore. When we have more dead bodies on the street, more bombs going off, when the channel migrants are up to 500,000 a year, when they're coming over in gunboats, when it's a taxi service. It has to get a lot worse before Labour would ever address it. The only consolation is this last election was a mini immigration election. The next election will be a full-blown immigration election.
Yeah. And I think Farage knows that.
Of course he does.
He knows that, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, he was remarkably, I thought, quiet about immigration during his campaign.
Because we've talked about this before. We can talk about immigration now. We couldn't have talked about it a few years ago.
Yes, yeah.
Without being cancelled, we can talk about it now. Give it another 4 years, everybody is going to be talking about immigration.
Yeah.
So he knew. Everyone knows my view on immigration. I don't need to remind them.
Yeah.
But if I bang on about immigration, it just gives my enemies the ammunition to say, look, racist. So he fought on other topics as well.
He was tactically very clever.
Of course he was.
But now he's in his role.
Yeah.
I think he's going to talk about it more.
He will do. And by the time of the next election, everybody will be talking about immigration. So then...
Which gives me hope, Nick.
Well...
Because I think then the government will... whoever wins will have to react to it, basically.
I don't think Labour's going to last 5 years.
Really?
Yeah, I can't see him lasting 5 years. Because I think it's going to get bad for them very quickly. I think this time next year we'll be talking about... Do you remember when we used to say how bad the Tories were? Do you remember? You're like, oh, we thought the Tories were bad, but look, have you seen what's going on, Nick, at the moment? That's be a conversation for us next year. That's how bad it's going to get and how quickly it's going to get. Because there's no money. There's rumours now of strikes everywhere in the public sector because they all want more money.
Yeah.
Looks like they've done a deal.
Because they've got an ally now, haven't they?
Looks like they've done a deal now with the doctors.
Oh, really?
So they're going to not get...
Is that West Streeting?
Yeah, looks like he's done a deal with them. Let's see what they end up. So everyone else is going to go, well, we get 6, 7, 8, 9, 10%.
And they'll be on our side because it's Labour.
Yeah, exactly. So all that will start happening.
Yeah.
There's reports now that rich people now are taking the wealth out of the country again.
Yeah.
It's happening in France as well.
I want to talk about that,
so all these things will start compounding the issues.
Yeah.
And they're not going to want to bother too much because that affects the bond markets and interest rates and all that sort of stuff, inflation. And they're going to be shouted at all the time. They're being criticised today because Rachel Reeves has given a speech today talking about building more houses.
Yeah.
Not once does she mention building any more council houses.
Oh, really?
And she's been attacked because she's not building any council houses. What she said is social rent houses, which means...
So private sector will be building...
They'll build all of them.
But it'll be the private...
And housing associations will run some of them, but no more council houses.
Oh, right.
and building none in 5 years.
Right.
So already been attacked for that.
Yeah, because that's where a lot of the immigrants live.
Yep. In London, over 50% of all council houses are given to people who weren't born in the country.
I didn't know that.
In London.
That's interesting.
It's bad everywhere, but it's over 50% in London.
50%?
Over 50% in London.
50% of council houses in London are occupied by foreigners.
Yep.
That's what you're saying?
Yep.
That's a headline.
Yeah, well, it's been in the headline. It's been in the press and everything. But then she's also announced today increase in defence spending. So the left are going,
whoa,
more money for wars?
But she's right to do that.
No, she is.
In my opinion.
But the left are going, more money for wars, but you're not building council houses. She's already being attacked by your own side.
But now they're getting a taste of what it's like to be in power, aren't they?
Yes.
Basically. I'd like to talk about the constituency of the cabinet as well. And please don't accuse me of being classist, as I know you will. First of all, there was quite a funny joke, and I sent it to you. There was a picture of Keir Starmer and his wife outside Number 10 with a picture of Tool Station on.
I saw that.
And you like the Tool joke, don't you?
Yeah.
I mean, just while we're on that, I understand Keir Starmer's wife is Jewish.
Yes.
So I've always believed the most powerful political force and will is pillow talk. Your wife, basically.
Well, it killed Boris Johnson's premiership.
Yeah, because I actually thought Boris Johnson won't be influenced by this because he doesn't really have a partner, but then he ended up marrying Carrie, and she was particularly progressive and trannies and all that sort of stuff. Yeah, so I think pillow talk is highly powerful. As a married man, I know that. Absolutely. You know it as a married man as well. And if his wife is Jewish, she will have a view, I'm sure, on...
And his children are brought up Jewish.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Did you hear the other day that he said he won't... Well, it got twisted unfairly, but in a nutshell, he said he won't be working after 6 p.m. on Fridays because he spends that with family.
Oh, Friday's the Jewish Sabbath.
Jewish Sabbath and stuff like that with his wife and his family. They twisted it, but...
That's interesting.
Again, why the Free Palestine people hate him. He's a Jew lover.
Yeah.
He's married a Jew. I bet he gets money from Israel.
Yeah, really.
So they hate him because of that.
So, that's another thing that gave me hope about Labour. The fact his wife is Jewish. So I was hoping, the whole Palestinian Hamas-Israel thing. But then if we go through the cabinet, and they start to, these very average people who he's brought into his cabinet and surround him, they start to deify them, don't they? Like they did with Alistair Campbell, Peter Mandelson, who are very average people in my view, who just happen to be in the right place at the right time. So it's highlighting one of his key people as Morgan McSweeney, who I'm sure you've never heard of.
I've never heard of him.
Campaign manager McSweeney ran Labour's highly disciplined election effort. An Irishman lives in Scotland, became Starmer's chief of staff, so it's Starmer's in 2020. He's widely seen as the architect of the Starmer project. Now, you could have given the project to a monkey and they would have won this number of seats.
His project was, Keir, shut up,
yeah.
Say nothing, do nothing, and you're going to win. A monkey could have told you that.
Exactly. But now he will now be reading that thinking, I'm a god,
Look at the majority, I got Labour. I'm amazing.
So these jumped up little people start to believe they're special and important, and it's happening already. Yeah. And of course the mainstream media love to do this, especially to Labour politicians. They're deifying them. Deputy Leader Angela Rayner, who I think is fabulous, is expected to running the Department of Levelling Up Housing and Communities, and is set to publish a revised draft of the National Planning Policy Framework. I doubt she can even spell National Planning Policy Framework. So you get this barely literate, barely articulate. And we saw her in the debates. She was dreadful in the debates. She couldn't handle any of the arguments. She kept repeating like a parrot the same stupid statements. This person, Nick, is our Deputy Prime Minister.
Yeah.
Did you actually see her walking into Number 10?
Yeah.
So that to me is shocking.
What she wore was fine.
What?
I wouldn't have worn it. What she wore, that green suit, was fine. On the debates, she repeated the same mantras because that's what that genius told her to do.
Oh, yeah.
As in, As in, don't say anything. Just use these 5 phrases. Don't mind if you look stupid. Just repeat these 5 phrases, because anything else you say could lose us the bloody election.
Yeah. You're right. Anything else you said could have lost the election, because she has got no control over what she... So you've got this campaign mastermind, who obviously isn't a mastermind, but now thinks he is, chief of staff. You've got Lammy, David Lammy.
He's an idiot.
So they've already appointed as the foreign secretary David Lammy. This is a man who basically slated off Trump in when he was on a trip, coming to a trip to London. Really insulted. I can't remember the insults. Maybe you do. And they've appointed him as foreign secretary, knowing
that Trump looks like he's going to win.
Trump likes he's going to win. This is a man, David Lammy, who said a man can grow a cervix.
Yeah.
Have you heard this?
Yeah.
This person is now our foreign secretary. Yeah. I mean, why has Starmer, who is a bright guy, he's a King's Counsel, he was the head of the DPP, he's not an idiot, is Starmer. He can't be to have got to that position. Why has he appointed...
Well, he's not an idiot to get that position for a white man.
He's not an idiot to what?
To get to those positions as a white man.
Yes.
He would have to be clever.
Yes, correct.
If he was black, gay,
correct.
Female, there may be some...
Yeah, there might be some doubt around
there,
it. But I think given our views on DEI now, if a white man gets to a senior position as well, we know he's good. There's no ambiguity about it. We know he hasn't been promoted because of his skin colour. And now there's Annalise Dodds, who's the... is she the Women and Equalities Minister?
It's something like that.
Yeah. She is somebody who doesn't know what a woman is, who said the definition of a woman depends on the context.
Yeah.
And I think she...
And I said that today or yesterday. So this isn't months ago.
Yes.
She said those things today.
Today? Oh, was it today she said that?
Oh, yesterday.
Yesterday.
So this wasn't like what she said a year ago.
Yeah.
No, this is like now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So somebody's been appointed in equalities who doesn't know what a woman is, who believes the definition of woman depends on the context.
Well, she knows what a woman is. It's anything any man says he is.
Correct. Yeah.
That's a woman.
Yeah, yeah. But the question I'd love to ask her is, what's a man?
Should say the same answer. It depends on the context.
So you've got these... He's already appointed these imbeciles into these roles. So whilst I have this optimism about Labour and what they're going to do, I'm not optimistic about his cabinet, but I'm heartened by the fact his wife is Jewish. That's kind of where I am with this.
David Lammy said on his acceptance speech that I'm the first working class black man from Tottenham ever to be elected to this position.
Probably true. Yes.
Could be true.
Yeah. He could be saying, I'm the first working class white man from Stockwell.
Who's got blue eyes and left-handed.
Yes.
We can break it down. It's like, so he's not the first black man to hold this position. He's not the first working class man to hold this position. But he wants to be special. He wants to play identity politics all the time. So he managed it in his speech. As if that was something special. Was it anything special? So yeah, he's always been an idiot, a racist as well as an idiot.
Yeah.
The Dodds woman, Annalise Dodds, she was the shadow chancellor up to a couple of years ago. She could have been chancellor now.
Yeah, and she is thick, I think. Whereas I think at least Rachel Reeves, she's quite bright. She's an Oxbridge graduate.
Yeah.
She's an economist. She's, I think she's quite academically strong, which gives me some comfort.
Yeah.
So you've got two of the most powerful people, which is Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, in senior positions, which gives me some comfort. But Angela Rayner, flipping heck.
We will see. I mean,
she hasn't really been given a position of power, has she? She's a deputy prime minister.
Yeah. She's there as a token to the far left of her party.
Yes.
The unions, the far left. Look, we've got one of your own here.
Yeah.
We've got a bruiser, we've got a fighter. Worked her way up from nothing, which she did.
Yeah.
Poor start in life, which she had. Look where she's got to. Amazing. Well done for her. We've got her representing you guys, so she's there for that. That's why she's not been given really anything important, one of the big jobs.
Yeah.
Which I thought she may have been given one of the big jobs.
No, I don't think Keir Starmer's that stupid. I think he's reasonable.
Well, sometimes it's not about being stupid. Sometimes it's she gets that job, or you have a civil war this month.
Yeah.
So sometimes you've got to make decisions you don't want to make because of the trouble coming down the track. So I'm sure his cabinet, and some of them won't be the people he wanted in it, but he's managing a party with different factions, and he's trying to keep the whole thing together. So he's appointed people who he probably doesn't rate and doesn't like.
And that's why I think I've got some comfort around him, and because with that majority, he could appoint who the hell he wanted on day one, couldn't he? With 440 people.
Well, you can do, but you risk civil war within your party straight away.
Yeah.
So we think he's got it made. We think his job used to be hard and now it's easy street. His job now becomes harder every single day for the next 5 years. Because not only is he responsible now for the government and running the country, he now has to make sure he keeps his seat. He keeps the residency of number 10 Downing Street, because there'll be lots of people in his party who want his job. Sadiq Khan wants his job. Andy Burnham wants his job. So there's two high-profile Labour people straight away. They're going to be wanting to stand for MPs soon, so they can get to Parliament.
Which is when our opportunity for you as Mayor returns.
And stab him in the back. So he's working out now, how do I keep them running for MPs? What can I do to stop him? Because I can't wait till they run and stop him, because I'll split the party in half. But I don't want him sat in Parliament behind me. So he's got his job will just get harder and harder and harder and harder. And I foresee he'll spend so much time fighting in his party, he'll have no time to run the country. Hence why things will get worse.
I want to move on now to a headline which you might be interested in. And it's to do with Labour, but it's not to do with Labour. So, British Jews have a reason to be frightened, and this time it's not Labour. And what's happened during this election, which I'm sure you're aware of, I think something like 5 MPs have been elected into Parliament on a pro-Hamas ticket.
6 if you include Jeremy Corbyn.
6 if you include Jeremy Corbyn. And these MPs have unashamedly said that they have lobbied on a pro-Hamas, pro-Palestine ticket.
Yep.
And there's now as many in Parliament as there are Reform voters, basically. And there was footage, and I don't know if you've seen it, of one of the MPs who won, I think in Birmingham, where their supporters were dancing around them. These are mainly, I'm guessing, Pakistani Muslims or whatever, with knives in the middle of the street. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, they look like ceremonial knives.
Yeah, they were still knives.
They're still knives, but as opposed to machetes.
If it was Tommy Robinson and his supporters with guys and knives, the police would have been there and arrested them all, basically. So there was an article, and I think it's in the Telegraph, saying British Jews have a reason now to be frightened because of this happening. Do you think that's a fair assessment, Nick?
I don't think they've got a reason to be afraid because those 6 people have been elected. They've got a reason to be afraid for the last couple of years, and because of what's happened in Israel and the backlash here, that's the reason to be afraid. 6 idiots in Parliament won't have that much to say and do themselves. It's tough being a Jew in the UK at the moment. It has been since Jeremy Corbyn took over the Labour Party and 97 came to the fore then. And then since the October massacre in Israel and the Free Palestine stuff since then, it's got worse and worse and worse. And we've talked about this many times now.
Yeah, I mean, just on that, we posted, or you posted a video about, and I can't remember what we were talking about, but during the video I mentioned that I supported Israel's right to defend itself. And that got some quite hostile reactions, which I was surprised at, because I didn't say I support Israel categorically. I said I support Israel's right to defend. And there were some very emotional responses.
And that's because it's okay to hate Jews now. Because Jews are on the wrong side of the moral compass, according to many people now.
Yeah.
So it's okay to hate Jews. It's okay for...
But it's not just okay to hate Jews. If you say, I support Israel's right to defend itself or Israel has the right to react to the October, you are now castigated by a lot of people.
Again, that's that simple thinking of if you're not on my side, you're on the side of evil. So anyone who opposes I mean, you see this all the time with the trans activists, the Free Palestine activists, the Green activists. If you're not on their side, then you're evil. You're a Nazi. You're trying to kill babies. You're trying to end the world.
But isn't this bigger than the trans thing or whatever? Because more people... it's interesting. So there was Comedy Unleashed last week in Manchester. You couldn't come, unfortunately. But I met Rob, the American there, who you do regular meetings in Manchester with. Cancel culture meetings, which I recommend to our viewers. If you're in Manchester, go. I think they're on a Sunday generally, aren't they?
One Sunday a month, cancelling cancel culture. You'll find it on the Meetup app. Free to go to. They're great.
Really good. They're really good. I've not been for a while, but I really enjoy going. And there was a couple there. It's interesting. I'm starting to recognise a lot of people that go there. People I've come across since COVID, either at marches or meetings or whatever. And there was a couple I met there who used to go to we had a WhatsApp group that used to meet up around COVID. It was the third Wednesday thing that came out of. They were there, and I introduced them to Rob. And Rob just kind of hits the ground running, doesn't he? And he was saying, and he was talking about COVID, but then he said something which I hadn't realised. He said, I've lost a load more friends recently. And I said, oh, he was talking to this couple, and he said, once I started telling them that, I was supporting Israel and its right to defend itself, people who had become my allies through the cancel culture in COVID turned their back on me, don't talk to me anymore. So there's a further division happening now in society between pro-Palestinian and I don't want to say pro-Israel because it's not about pro-Israel. For me, it's about the ability of Israel to defend itself in this war and the ability of to be, to fight for their country. And I understand there's been horrific casualties in Palestine or in the Gaza Strip. I understand all that's going on, but to me, this is the collateral damage, which I know I'll get castigated for of war. So it's interesting. We're talking about British Jews have a right to be scared, but there is a very, very fundamental rift in this country, and there is a lot of anti-Semitism at the moment.
There is. See, it's complicated. So we all keep mixing up Israel with Jews, with British Jews, and the three different groups, all together.
Totally.
But we interchange them and we talk about one topic and move into the other topic, and we're all guilty of it as if they're all one thing, and that's part of the problem here. Now, when it comes to Israel, I don't care. I'm not anti-Israel, I'm not pro-Israel. I'm not anti-Palestinian, I'm not pro-Palestinian. These are foreign people on a foreign continent, in a foreign country. I don't care. They should sort their own shit out. People will die, but people have always died. We have wars all the time. The history of mankind is wars. The terrible, innocent people die. But our history, my lifetime in the West, has been, let's stop messing in other countries because it always ends badly. So I'm not interested in Israel. Then we have to look at Jews in general. So Jews in general are a ethnic race as well as a religion. So some Jews are not Jewish, do not practice the Jewish faith, can be Christians, can be Muslims. They just happen to be a race of people called the Jews. Most of them are Jewish religion. And then we've got British Jews. And British Jews to me are British citizens who live here, born here, work here, family raised here, and they just happen to have a different religion to me. So we've got three distinct groups here. But anti-Semitism has been around forever. The conspiracy theories about Jews never go away. And then some of, like all small communities, sometimes it's their actions bring some of this distrust upon themselves. Now, if you look at the Orthodox Jewish community in Manchester, they look very different. The fact they dress differently is the same argument of Muslim women wearing the burqa to a certain extent. Why are you separating yourselves from everybody else around you? Why are you looking different? Do you think you're better than us? So that's an issue with Orthodox Jews. There's a problem in this UK with British Jews sending their children to do military service in Israel. I'm totally against that. If your child can't sign up to the British Army, they shouldn't be signing up to anybody else's army. I don't like that. Just like I don't like Muslim kids going off to fight for ISIS or whoever, or even to conscript in Pakistan's army. I don't want any of that going on. You only can have one master. You only can be loyal to one country, and it should be this country. Now, a lot of the problems are quite similar to how Muslims are being treated and feel they're being treated now. So very complicated, but we need to get to the heart of it. And to solve some of these things, as I've been saying for years now, we need that umbrella term that pulls us all together. So it doesn't matter if you're Indian descent and I'm Irish descent. It doesn't matter that if they're a Muslim and I'm a Buddhist, or you're gay or you're trans. We all come together under the nation's flag, under the monarchy, under shared values, with a shared aim of a better life together. And under that, there can be slight deviations of your family likes cricket, my family likes football. Your family go to a mosque, my family go to a temple. There can be slight deviations. But for the last 30, 40, 50 years, we're doing the opposite. We keep splitting ourselves into tribes more. So when something happens in Israel, British Jews are persecuted here. It's like, well, they're not Israelis. They're British Jews. They're British, just like me and you. They should be held responsible for what happens in that country. We have a cricket match in India-Pakistan. What happens 2 years ago? Riots in Leicester. Pakistani youths fighting Indian youths, trying to kill each other because of a match in a foreign country, in a foreign continent.
That didn't happen this time because India smashed everybody.
Did they? Right.
Yes.
But all these problems are all connected. Identity politics, no belonging to the country you live in, not seeing your neighbours as the same as you because we keep thinking they're different, and part of these small communities are doing it. I am different to that community, and this is just the same problem.
I'd like to talk about that, but I think just looking at the time, we're getting to the end of this episode. But I think when we start our next talk, I'd like to talk about what you've just covered, because I think there's a really interesting point there, and my eyes were opened to something around that. So if I could just, gentle viewers, we'll bring this episode to a close. Nick Buckley, MBE, Man on a Mission.
Man on a Mission.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you enjoy that video? I think you did. Come on now, hit that bell, subscribe, comment. Let's build this channel. I need more followers. I need more subscribers. Be part of the journey. See you soon.